God of Advent, we thank you for this time to gather together. Be with us and bless this time. Open our hearts to your coming. Amen.
Buenos días a todos y a todas. Good morning. Feliz Adviento. Happy Advent. 3 candles. Ooh, one candle is flickering so far, and we'll light the 4th, I think, at the end of the session. So, Advent is drawing to a close. Christmas is approaching. Today, I have a whole table wreath full of candles lit, blue candles, partly because of Advent. But lighting candles takes on new meaning these days after what happened in Mayfield, Kentucky last Saturday night, during the night. Anyway, a candle factory was destroyed by the tornadoes, the worst tornadoes in history in that area, I think, especially in December. They're not expecting Advent tornadoes. So I don't know if they manufactured the candles that I have here, but 8 people, I think, were killed in that tornado disaster. And the factory was destroyed, demolished. And it will take a long time to rebuild and for the people to recover, for the survivors to recover. Many of their homes and families were destroyed as well in the town of Mayfield. But the tornado hit a 200 and some miles stretch, just amazing. And it was a mile in width. So that's unheard of, especially for Kentucky in December. So this is a memorial Advent. So we'll sing the Advent chorus that we tried last Thursday. Just the chorus. I'll sing it a couple times, and if you want to hum along, sing along. And Ben, Señor, no tardes. Come, Lord. Do not delay. We're waiting for you. Come, Lord. Come soon, Lord. Ven, Señor, no tardes. Ven, que te esperamos. Ven, Señor, no tardes. Ven pronto, Señor. Ven, Señor, no tardes. Ven, que te esperamos. Ven, Señor, no tardes. Ven pronto, Señor. The Christmas bells have already gone by. We get bells all year when the garbage truck goes by. They ring bells to alert us. And they come by Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So those bells have already gone by about half an hour ago. Advent 3. So let's read, instead of the gospel reading, let's read the first or the Old Testament lesson from Zephaniah. And with a focus still on rescue from our enemies. And then I'll tell a little about why, the connection with rescuing from enemies here in our Salvadoran Advent context. So Zephaniah.
Sing aloud, O daughter Zion. Shout, O Israel. Rejoice and exult with all your heart, O daughter Jerusalem. The Lord has taken away the judgments against you. He has turned away your enemies. The King of Israel, the Lord, is in your midst. You shall fear disaster no more. On that day, it shall be said to Jerusalem, do not fear, O Zion. Do not let your hands grow weak. The Lord your God is in your midst, a warrior who gives victory. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will renew you in his love. He will exult over you with loud singing, as on a day of festival. I will remove disaster from you, so that you will not bear reproach for it. I will deal with all your oppressors at that time. I will save the lame and gather the outcast, and I will change their shame into praise and renown in all the earth. At that time, I will bring you home, at the time when I gather you, for I will make you renowned and praised among all the peoples of the earth when I restore your fortunes before your eyes, says the Lord.
December in El Salvador, especially December 2021, we have been hearing a great deal about a tragedy that hit El Salvador 40 years ago. Today, this week, this year is the 40th anniversary of the disaster, the tragedy, the massacre of El Mozote. I don't know if any of you know or have heard of or recall El Mozote. 40 years ago, 1981. It was perhaps the worst massacre in recent Latin American history. Almost 1,000 of God's people were killed. Children, many children, seniors, women, non-combatants. This was not an attack on a war base, on a military base. It was a civilian town, El Mozote. And in fact, even a right-wing Christian town, so even more surprising perhaps, maybe left-wing Christians were suspected of being subversive and opposed to the government and the military, but certainly not evangelical right-wing Christians, but they were slaughtered, almost 1,000 of them in over 4 days, December 9th through 12th. So we've just completed that time, and we've heard a lot about that. And those responsible, government and military, and from the White House and the Pentagon as well, have gone with impunity these 40 years. And it is the trial is still being blocked. Originally, it was denied, it was covered up, and it was reported by a New York Times reporter, Raymond Bonner, and he was fired for reporting this massacre. He was there on site investigating it. And a woman from the Washington Post as well, I forget her name, but Bonner's work was buried, and for 10 years it was denied. This did not happen. And then it gradually came to light, and the UN acknowledged it or exposed it, and so it had to be acknowledged. But 40 years later, it's still being covered up. A few months ago, the investigation was blocked because the government and the military refused to provide the documentation from the records for the judge and the court case, so it could not move ahead. I think it was the UN that eventually came in to say that those had to be made available to the judge and for that court case. And since then, about a month ago, the main judge responsible for this case is over 60. So the government decided that all lawyers, all judges over 60 had to retire, forced retirement. And they were accused, all accused of being corrupt. If you're over 60, you're corrupt and have to retire. So immediately the whole process came to a halt once again, and it is being blocked still 40 years later. Nobody is being held responsible for the massacre of El Mozote and surrounding villages. So I think Zephaniah's word to God's people is still very valid here. God led God's people out of Egypt to liberation from slavery in Egypt over 40 years, led by Moses. And now we've been wandering in the wilderness of injustice and impunity here for 40 years. And those people have still not been rescued from their oppressors. So we continue to pray now in Advent. El Salvador is a country of martyrdom, of course. We all know of Romero, I think. I'm wearing his t-shirt here. Who's now San Romero, not just of America, but globally. San Romero. And so we commemorate his martyrdom on March 24th each year. And as I say, not only in El Salvador, but globally. I'm drinking from his coffee mug too. A double image of Romero. And I think we all recall the Jesuit massacre as well. And so we commemorate their martyrdom. 6 Jesuit priests and 2 women collaborators at the UCA, the Jesuit University, November 16th from 1989. So that's 22 years ago. And that case is still being blocked as well. Only one is in prison in Spain. Interestingly, his surname is innocent, but he was extradited from the US for lying to US immigration authorities. So faced trial in Spain and went to jail, but otherwise the others, military and politicians, are being protected here in El Salvador from facing the consequences of that crime. War or crime against humanity, not just homicide, but a crime against humanity. So we have those during the year, but we also have this Advent massacre. And it's not the only Advent massacre, because at the beginning of December, we also commemorate the massacre of 4 US churchwomen, Maryknoll sisters from the US, and they were returning to El Salvador from Nicaragua in 1980. 81 at the beginning of December. And so the 4 of them were diverted and kidnapped. They were raped and murdered at a site near the airport. There's now been a chapel, a lovely church built on the site. And so they are commemorated each year, at least. And I've been to some of those. Unfortunately, it's mostly sisters, mostly women that commemorate their martyrdom. Not so many men. Of course, it's Roman Catholic, so the priest has to be male, which is ironic. The priest is male, and all the those in assistance are women for the most part. Little dark humor. I was at one of those events, and leaving the chapel, there was about an 8-year-old kid standing in the doorway, kind of bidding farewell to hundreds of sisters mostly from the US. I'm from El Salvador. And he was wearing a t-shirt, which I thought was appropriate and fitting, although maybe not so funny. And on his t-shirt read, "Shut up, B," a word that rhymes with itch. And this was what all these sisters were reading on the way out of commemorating their 4 church women sisters from the US. And 2, every year we commemorate the martyrdom. So the word of God of being delivered from our enemies is still very, very current. It's not Old Testament or John the Baptist language. It's everyday Salvadoran news. How we're progressing with these trials and how the survivors are getting on with their lives. For so many decades past, so many of those have died. So now it's often the grandchildren that are carrying these trials forward and seeking deliverance from their enemies. So that's Advent in El Salvador. Last week, we focused on the Fe y Esperanza survivors of massacres and their gardening projects. One video I tried to send that I didn't manage to send, and I think now Kendra has it. Maybe it shows the gardening that they're doing, them working. I showed a video of the garden, but not with them working. They've documented it, and I think Kendra has that video and can show it of them watching their own documentary of themselves doing some gardening. So just a reminder back to our December 5th celebration of their market gardening. So all is not despair and doom and gloom. There is growth, there is renewal, there is hope among the people, God's people, in spite of all that they have had to endure over the last years and decades. And still, the forced disappearances and so on, life is not easy for them. That's why so many are fleeing to the US and facing all sorts of trouble along the way, through Mexico and at the border and in the US and beyond. So we have another story from Advents and Christmases past. We're going to hear a duet first, a couple guys in my home. A very algo nuevo está naciendo. Something new is being born, new lives, communities are being born and renewed. So they're going to sing that for us from my home. And then one of them is going to tell of his Christmases, Advents and Christmases past, from El Salvador and also from Finland, but in English. He doesn't expect you all to understand Finnish or Spanish. So he'll tell it in English, which his English is very good. It's just the audio because videos don't send very well, especially it's almost 8 minutes. So it's worth listening to, from years back in El Salvador, and then 2 or 3 Christmases spent in Finland, in the saunas of Finland. Camp Kyriakis knows all about saunas and Finnish roots too. Here we go.
En medio de la noche, noche oscura, noche larga, que mi pueblo soportaba, el silencio como un niño de esperanza alimentaba. De pronto esa noche, con luces prendidas, en mi pueblo se encendía, y este niño que esperaba sus manitas le levantaba. Algo nuevo está naciendo y en mi pueblo está latiendo. Algo nuevo está naciendo, con nosotros va subiendo. Algo nuevo está naciendo, con los pobres va creciendo. Con llanto va sembrando, con los que luchan por ser libres, los que aman, los humildes, muy contentos volverán a cosechar lo que han sudado. Algo nuevo va naciendo y con fuerzas va creciendo en el seno de mi pueblo. Algo nuevo está naciendo, nuestro Dios se hizo pueblo. Algo nuevo está naciendo, en mi pueblo está Dios va subiendo, algo nuevo está naciendo, con los pobres va creciendo.
Okay, so let's hear the audio story from Manuel Chavez, who's back in El Salvador looking for work. He just had a 3-month contract and now he's looking for another one. He's a technician, so many skills, but hard to find to employ them sometimes. It's a challenge here and Finland, anywhere. Anyway, let's hear about Christmas from Manuel.
Hello, I'm Manuel Chavez from El Salvador. Today I want to share with you my reflection and how important is the family and friends to share love in Christmas time. When I was child, I remember how happy I feel in this Christmas time. And one reason is because I have holidays from the school. My sisters, cousins, friends, and me, we have time to play different games on the streets because we don't have park around our neighbor. So we play also in the train track because I grew up in a poor neighborhood. On Christmas Day, I remember that we have family reunion. The whole family came on in my grandparent house to join and make a traditional food. So that means in El Salvador we don't have turkey as a dinner. Or Christmas dinner that my lovely family make for us was tamales, hot chocolate drink, and quesadillas. So in that simple way, we was happy to eat that kind of food because they make for us with the all love for us. On evening, we went to the church to see the Bethlehem drama, and many people also came and joined because also they want to see, and all people enjoy watching the fireworks. So in that way, we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And in the middle of the night, my family and friends, we share hugs to, to say thanks to God that we are healthy and we are live, or we have our parents live and healthy. 4 years ago, I lost my job. I was working in a telecommunication company, and here in El Salvador, the violence was increasing and was too hard to live here as a young man. So I was desperate and I decided to immigrate to Finland. Well, I was visiting there before because the Lutheran Church invited me to visit there, but in this time I decided myself to go there. But the reason was I request the international protection, but I have not changed get it. But in other hand, I was happy to be there and see different life. And I spent the Christmas time there also. I remember that on Christmas Day, all the people joined in the Central Park in front of the Lutheran Church of Turku City. And the tradition there is that for 100 years the mayor has to declare the peace of Christmas. That is a big national event that they share on the social media and TV, radio. So the people there sang songs, the anthem of Finland, and after that, in the evening, I joined to a Finnish people family. I joined to Finnish family for the Christmas dinner. We ate different kind of food as salmon dishes, cranberry pies, and glöggi, that is a hot drink. After dinner, we sang around the Christmas tree, and one man wearing as Santa Claus came and bring us present for the whole family, and bring one also for me. I must say that was the second time that I have to receive a gift, because in my my family we don't have that kind of tradition here in El Salvador. And staying in a cool weather and far away from my family, I felt the hospitality of my Finnish friends there. I was too happy to see the snow for the first time. And after the Christmas day, we enjoy the sauna, going to the sauna first and then go to the lake and then again to the sauna, like that. In that way, we enjoy the sauna. It's my first time to be in sauna there also. And one thing that always I remember, that I learned the basic Finnish language. So I can say to you, hyvää joulua ja onnellista uutta vuotta. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Feliz Navidad y Año Nuevo.
Thank you, Manuel, for telling us about your Christmases in El Salvador and in Finland. Hope you can visit our sauna at Camp Kiriaka someday. Show us how the Finns do it. Advent in El Salvador is a time, well, Christmas and Advent are times for visiting around, family, friends, neighbors. Everybody's out on the street visiting, dancing. And so we've done a lot of that here. And we've got a video of 4 old timers getting together and singing. And there's some of the older folk from when Fe y Esperanza was a refuge in the mid-'80s. And they're enjoying the memories of Fe y Esperanza from the 80s, as difficult as those years were for them, fleeing their homes and sheltering with the Lutheran Church at Fe y Esperanza. And they're singing, they made up a bit of a song about their life at Fe y Esperanza and their relationship with the Lutheran Church. Resurrection Lutheran Church was the sponsoring church. So let's listen to
Iglesia, esa. Sí, vaya, ayúdenme.
Vaya.
Solo tú, iglesia luterana, abriste tu corazón para darle protección a esta comunidad, para darle protección a esta humilde comunidad. Ahora estamos celebrando 11 años de fundación que nació en esta tierra del país de Salvador, que nació en esta tierra del país de Salvador. A las 6 de la mañana Cristo se nos presentó, está formado en bandera de la iglesia la resurrección, transformado en bandera de la iglesia la resurrección. Es el rostro luminoso de Jesús Cristo el Rey, y Martín Lutero es el líder de la iglesia reformada. Martín Lutero es el líder de la iglesia reformada.
Bravo.
Bravo, ustedes la han vuelto a oír, ¿verdad?
So yes, Martin Luther is the leader of the Reformed Church. Yeah, there you have the translation, more or less. They're very thankful to the Lutheran Church. They weren't Lutherans before this, before coming to Fe y Esperanza, but they're certainly faithful, dedicated Lutherans ever since. And they're in a rural home about 2 hours drive, a challenging drive from San Salvador. So we were very glad to be able to go out and visit them and share a day, Advent day with them 2 years ago. Gail, Paul, and I were remembering Christmases at Camp Kyriakos, a tradition I started when I was directing there years and years and years ago, and nobody else cared about it. Nobody wanted to go to Camp Kyriakos for Christmas. Now you have to compete, you have to book years in advance. It's a very popular thing, but back in the 80s, nobody wanted it except us, the Whigs, or the mom side of the family. So we always enjoyed 4 or 5 days together at Camp Kyriakos, and still do every 4 years.
Well, and back in the 80s, it would have been a lovely brand new building.
I'm going to share a little about just a few comments about hymns, Advent hymns. This Spanish hymnal was published by Augsburg Fortress in '98. Libro de Liturgia y Cántico. And I went through the Advent hymns, and surprisingly, let's see, there are only about 11, and I only know 3 of them. One we sing here, and 2 I know from Canada, from childhood, all my life. The one, Despertar, is wake awake, for night is flying, the watchman on the line. We all know that one. And well, Bach arranged it to, who's the author? It slips my mind now. Anyway, and the other one we know is, O come, Emmanuel. So those are the only 2 from European tradition, Advent hymns in this Spanish book. And so yeah, of the 11, I can only recognize 3, surprisingly. And then the Christmas one was Las Posadas, which we sang with Alexa last time, but it's actually the first of the Christmas hymns, when groups go door to door in the street seeking shelter, and then partying a little at each home. No, there's some good resources to learn, and Gail helped teach some of the newer ones from the most recent edition. So through October, she brought to my some of the Spanish and English, well, and from other countries from around the world. including Advent and Christmas hymns from the new book. So those are our worship musical hymns. Well, let's sing once through our ven, ven, Señor, no tardes. Ven, ven, que te esperamos. Ven, ven, Señor, no tardes. Ven pronto, Señor. Thanks for joining and see you next Thursday.